Go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to our meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District workshop for a proposed amendment to Rule 4461, fence line monitoring of metal shredding facilities. The meeting is being held in person and telecast between our Fresno, Modesto, and Bakersfield offices and via Zoom. My name is Tim Franquist, Director of Air Quality Planning, and I'm joined by Molly Boyette, Supervising Air Quality Specialist, Selena Chavez, Senior Air Quality Specialist, and Jake Benjamin, Air Quality Specialist. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation in person and via Zoom. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as cell phones. During the meeting, all public participants on Zoom will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. If you'd like to provide public comment during the comment period of this workshop, please step up to the podium to signify that you wish to speak or raise your hand on Zoom. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. You can also submit comments or questions via webcast at valleyair.org email or Q&A function on Zoom, which will be addressed after the verbal public comment. If you are presenting or providing a public comment, please state your name and affiliation and speak slowly to allow for a smooth translation. At this time, our translators will share instructions on how to access the translation services.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hola, buenas tardes. Ahora les voy a dar la información cómo pueden escuchar la interpretación en español en una computadora. En los controles de la reunión o el seminario web, seleccione el icono de la interpretación que aparece un mundo en la parte de abajo de la pantalla. 2. Seleccione y silencie el audio original. En un teléfono o en una tableta, seleccione los 3 puntos para ver más opciones, seleccione interpretación y siga las mismas instrucciones de arriba. Para hacer una pregunta o comentario, seleccione el icono de reacciones para levantar su mano o puede enviar un correo electrónico a webcast@valleyair.org.
Great. With that, we'll get started. We have a brief presentation to go through, and then at the end, we can begin the comment period. Spanish version. Get started.
All right, to kick us off, I'll provide some background on Assembly Bill 2851, which is the legislation driving the rulemaking effort we'll be discussing today. AB 2851 requires metal shredding facilities as defined in California Health and Safety Code section 25150.82 to conduct fence line air quality monitoring for specific metals. More specifically, by July 1st of 2027, California Air Districts, in consultation with the Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC, and the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, or OEHA, are required to develop and adopt threshold levels for cadmium, lead, nickel, and zinc to be monitored at the facility's fence line that are protective of air quality and public health, and that are following health guidance values adopted by OEHA, as well as community notification procedures to inform the public if air monitoring indicates exceedances of those thresholds and potential adverse health impacts. Also, actions to be taken by metal shredding facilities if exceedances of thresholds occur, and requirements to report air monitoring results to the Air District and local public health department. To implement these statutory requirements, the district is developing new Rule 4461, metal shredding facilities fence line air monitoring, through the public rulemaking process. I will pass it along now to Jake to provide an overview of the operations subject to these requirements.
AB 2851 cites California Health and Safety Code section 25150.82 subsection B to define metal shredding facilities as operations using a shredding technique to process end-of-life vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal to facilitate separation and sorting of ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, and other recyclable materials from non-recyclable materials that are components of the end-of-life vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal. Here's a brief overview of what a metal shredding facility does. Facility collects end-of-life vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal as received from various public and private entities. The facility then sorts items for further processing on-site or distribution to other recycling facilities. From there, the facility may compact the material using a shear, shredder, or baler to condense materials into smaller pieces for subsequent processing at other facilities.
AB 2851 was signed into law on September 7th, 2024, and established responsibilities for local air districts, DTSC, and OEHA. Local air districts are required to develop and adopt a rule implementing fence line air quality monitoring of cadmium, lead, nickel, and zinc by July 1st, 2027 at metal shredding facilities. DTSC is required to collect and analyze light fibrous materials, or LFM, at the facility fence lines and develop a community notification procedure. Additionally, DTSC is authorized to collect an annual fee from metal shredding facilities and will continue handling state-level permits. OEHA is required to develop health guidance values to be used as air quality monitoring thresholds for those four identified metals: cadmium, lead, nickel, and zinc. As part of this rulemaking process and to promote consistent implementation of AB 2851 statewide, the district is working closely with other air districts, including the South Coast Air Quality Management District and the Bay Area Air District, as well as OEHA and DTSC through our ongoing interagency meetings. During these meetings, the agencies have discussed key implementation requirements, including facility applicability, statutory deadlines, monitoring requirements, community notification provisions, and the respective responsibilities of air districts, OEHA, and DTSC. Additionally, OEHA has provided regular updates on the development of those health-based threshold values for the identified metals. OEHA is expected to finalize these health guidance values by December of 2026.
New District Rule 4461 would require the use of monitoring technology capable of detecting cadmium, lead, nickel, and zinc. District staff are researching monitoring approaches and developing technology recommendations for use in facility-wide fence line air quality monitoring networks at metal shredding facilities. AB 2851 does not specify monitoring technology. Regarding ongoing efforts to implement the requirements of AB 2851, the district has identified 2 potentially impacted facilities and is actively conducting outreach to facilities and industry associations. The district is also conducting a thorough review of all permits associated with potentially impacted facilities and conducting site visits to gain a better understanding of daily operations. District staff will review current technologies and methods used for ambient air monitoring of metals. And lastly, through interagency coordination, the district will continue to work with other air districts, OEHA, and DTSC to streamline the implementation of AB 2851 requirements.
The district is initiating its public process for Rule 4461 with today's public scoping meeting. Before adoption of the rule, the district will host public workshops to allow for additional feedback. As required by AB 2851, and as previously mentioned, we are expected to receive the OEHA thresholds by January 1st, 2027. The district intends to present the proposed Rule 4461 to its board spring of 2027 ahead of the July 1st, 2027 adoption deadline established in AB 2851. And as always, public participation and comment is invited throughout the process. If you have any questions or would like to provide any comments regarding Rule 4461, you may do so by contacting myself or Jake Benjamin using the information provided on this slide. If you would like to view our rule development webpage where the slides presented today are currently available, you may do so by scanning the QR code on the left side of the screen. Additionally, if you would like to sign up for future email notifications regarding district updates on Rule 4461, you may do so by scanning the QR code on the right side of the screen, and it will take you directly to our webpage. The district would like to thank you for your time and effort in attending today's meeting. And with that, I will pass it back to Tim to open it up for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Selena. Do we have any questions or comments in person?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Or any for Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
See any comments here in Fresno as well? So with that, we'll turn on to.
We do have one online.
Yeah, okay, well, yep, we'll go to the raise hands and Zoom now.
Hi, this is Viviana Prado. Calling from Leadership Council based out of the Fresno office. Thank you for the presentation today. I had a couple of questions about the rulemaking process. My first question is regarding the January 2027 deadline. From my reading of AB 2851, there's a January 1st deadline and there's also a July 1st deadline. So I was wondering if you could provide a little bit more details about what's going to be required to be completed by January 1st versus July 1st. That's my first question. And I don't know, should I pause there or go through my other two questions as well?
Whatever you like, we can take them one by one or.
Okay, I'll pause there then. Thank you.
Great questions, and it's something we've been working with the other air districts on to kind of coalesce around that. On the January 2027, what we're looking there is for OEA to provide us with the 4 metals, what those thresholds are. So that will be the deliverable with the requirements at that time, and then the July will be final rules implemented at that point. So those are the 2 dates. So OEA thresholds and the 1st of January of 2027, and the July deadline will be essentially our deadline for getting the rule approved and implemented.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful to know. And then my next question is regarding one of the slides in the presentation where you distinguish between the different activities of a metal shredding facility, right? So there's the collection, separation, and then the compacting activity of a metal shredding facility. So just to clarify, this rule is only going to apply to facilities that compact, or will it also apply to facilities that separate and collect, even if they do not compact?
That's a great question. So I'll start with kind of the basic piece where they have to do all 3, the vehicle components, appliances, and then other metal. Maybe I can turn to Jake. I don't know if you have an answer to that at the compression. My gut, well, I'll just turn to Jake to see if he has a more specific answer to that.
So they would need to shred all 3. They would need to shred vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal. They would also need to shred components of vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal. So it's one or the other. Either they're shredding all of them, they're shredding vehicles, appliances, and other forms of scrap metal, or the components thereof. As for the process that is subject to the legislation required rulemaking, the shredding is the focus here. It's not the baling or the shearing, it is the shredding of those components.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I'm asking this question because I know that there's a lot of scrap metal facilities throughout the San Joaquin Valley, and there's, like you identified, only a couple of facilities that actually engage in the shredding. So I'm assuming that they receive the metal that they're shredding from the scrap metal yards that are distributed throughout the Central Valley. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any type of regulation or monitoring at the scrap metal yards that feed into these metal shredding facilities?
I don't think that's contemplated under this assembly bill right now. So right now it'd be just as Jake pointed out, those different activities at the shredding facilities, but not the upline facilities.
Okay. Have there been any considerations of regulating the scrap metal yards, either at the interagency level or at the individual agencies?
We haven't contemplated that at this time, but again, you always have to take comments and feedback.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just asking because I know that a lot of the residents that Leadership Council works with have also expressed concern about contaminants that are released from scrap metal yards, in addition to the metal shredding facilities. So those are I guess my last question is if you mentioned that you've identified 2 facilities that would likely be subject to this rulemaking. Are you able to share which are those 2 facilities?
I think right now, based on it being such a preliminary analysis, one of the facilities we're still talking through their business process, whether they'd be subject to this rule. So I think right now, I don't think we'd be comfortable until we have 100% certainty on that. Other than to say that we do believe there's at least 2 right now, based on the current definition.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have James Simonelli.
Good morning. Wait, hold on. Can you guys hear me there?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I was doing something else. Good afternoon. James Simonelli, Executive Director of the California Metals Coalition. I'm actually in Sacramento. I represent the State Trade Association for Metal Manufacturing. And so we are working on this rule both in the other air districts, the South Coast, and the Bay Area. I just wanted to say a couple of things very short. One is to thank your staff for coming and doing the site visits. We find it's very important. There's a lot of technical things to learn at these facilities and understanding of how these materials are recycled, how we receive the materials from the public, how we clean the materials prior to shredding, make sure that there's, the oils are drained and the gasolines and things like that. There's regulations in place for that to take out things before they go into the shredder overall. So number one is just to thank the staff for coming out. The second thing that I just wanted to point out is on timing. We've been kind of waiting for OEHA to establish the thresholds. I know you had made some mention of the thresholds. Being that this law was passed and started in 2024, and we're halfway through 2026, it would be very helpful to get some insight from OEHA on where they are in this process, especially on zinc, because of zinc, not being listed as a toxic contaminant. For many, it's a nutrient. And then second is, are they going to establish a threshold for zinc based on some sort of information? It'd be nice for us to just be sharing that. And I've given these comments to the other districts as well, so they've heard from me on this. But I think one of our major concerns about having this moving forward in 2027 is to understand if OEHA is coming up with separate thresholds, which I know you guys are not in control of that, but at least so you understand from the industry side, before we talk about technologies, before we talk about placement of monitors, all those things, really the thresholds should be the first piece that we work through. So I appreciate you taking my comments.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity to do the site tours. I think it was very educational, as you said, for our staff to do that. Yeah, I wish I could speak more to the OEHA process. I think, we don't have any firm dates in terms of those thresholds, but from what they've told us in other meetings, we're looking, I think, late fall. Certainly, obviously, before that January 1st deadline. But again, yeah, to the extent of, the depth and how they go into their process and setting those, again, I think there's still definitely some conversation to be had about that.
Excellent. Thanks again.
We have Christian Bisher.
Hi, good afternoon. Christian Bisher. I live here in Fresno, and I work for the Central California Environmental Justice Network. I guess my comments are going to be informed from the petroleum refinery fence line monitoring rule. Just a project that our organization works on. We engage with it a lot. And so when you're working on this rulemaking, I would highly recommend fence line B fence line. The petroleum allowed for the proposal of not the entire fence line. If it was justified by the facility, which just makes it very opinionated. And knowing that most of these facilities are going to be closer to towns, there's going to be a lot of people that would be impacted. So just the rule just says the entire fence line, that's going to take a lot of headache away from the air district when they have to approve these plans. Also, these fence line systems, they're going to go down a lot. And so in your writing, when you write it up, if you just make it a part of the process that the facility has to provide proof of or show verification that they lost power, they lost connectivity. Otherwise, we're going to be asking the air district inspector. They're not going to know. They're going to have to either ask or choose not to ask the facility. If it's built in from the beginning, your system goes down, you have to show why, not just say why. And then it is very difficult to use some of the petroleum fence line monitoring systems if you actually want to see multiple pollutants. You can't. And so knowing that this is going to look at multiple pollutants, they give you a screen and it's the present time green or red. Is it in compliance or over the REL threshold? But that means for every single pollutant, you have to either pick the 5-minute or the hour, and you have to manually go through it. And while it's a pain for us, it's even more difficult for the community members that live near there. That even today is very uncommon to have an actual personal computer in their home. They're going off their tiny cell phone device. And so if you can just, from the get-go, a standard format of making it easy to navigate and see the information. And that was all I had. Thank you.
Great, appreciate the comment. I think one of the pieces I'll just clarify, and I think we went over it there, but just the OEA thresholds won't be regulatory thresholds, so it won't be an issue of a violation or non-violation. What will happen per the statute is if there is an exceedance of the threshold, then there's a communication process to the community. So just a clarification, we're not setting any new regulatory standards with the OEA thresholds. But definitely appreciate the feedback.
No further online comments.
Any comments in the Q&A of Zoom?
There are no comments in the Q&A.
And lastly, turning to webcast email. Do we have any comments in the webcast email?
There are no comments in the webcast email.
Great. Well, we want to thank everybody again for joining us today and all the great comments and feedback that we've gotten. That will conclude today's presentation and meeting. We'll be having further meetings with workshops in the future. But again, we appreciate everybody's attendance today. Thank you. And with that, we'll conclude.